Good evening, it is 6 o'clock, March 5th, 2024. Welcome to the fourth edition of the Cascade Lock Support Commission 2.0. We will start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
President Orion,
Here.
Vice President Clute, here. Commissioner Ness,
Here.
Commissioner Peterson,
Here.
Commissioner Sweet, here.
All right, modifications, additions, and changes to the agenda.
There are none. I will notate that on number 2B, the consent agenda, that at the previous meeting, you guys had approved the revised 24-25 budget schedule. We found a couple of dates in there that didn't work for Marina & Co., so we've adjusted those. So that's all that's changed from last week.
Okay, great. So do you have those? Or
They're in there, updated.
Okay, so we're good. All right, great. All right. Well, consent agenda, approval of minutes from annual planning session on January 27th, 2024, and commission meeting on February 6th, 2024. Approval of revised 2024-2025 budget schedule.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda in its entirety as stated.
Okay.
I'll second that.
And we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, there's unanimously. Discussions. Root cause analysis team report, January 13th, 2024, Sterling Water and more.
Take that one.
I'm gonna give
Okay.
We all know where we're going.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you especially to Commissioners Nance and Peterson for participating on the root cause analysis team. In your packet is our full report. I think verbally, I'll just summarize that the team met twice. We reviewed all of the incident reports and investigation reports. We interviewed Jetty Light staff and did an Ishikawa diagram exercise to look at all of the contributing factors for the incident, including the environmental contributors, materials and supplies, materials and equipment contributors, and the human knowledge, skills, and abilities contributors. The team concluded that the root causes of the incident, there were four. The primary one being that the severe weather conditions with the variability of the weather forecasts exacerbated the preparation of the securing of the boat during the blizzard, as well as the lack of remote access to the onboard weather and pitch and drift data. Second, the moorage line age and lack of life cycle management system may have been a root cause. We don't know for sure that it was a root cause, but it's a likely cause, as it could have directly decreased the moorage line strength and could have contributed to the breakage. We also concluded that the galvanized chain support that was rigged for the purpose of strengthening the moorage attachment may have had the opposite effect, because it may have been rigged without sufficient slack, and its breakage may have caused a shock to the rest of the moorage lines and caused them to break before they had the ability to flex and stretch the way they were designed to do. Again, we don't know that that is for sure a root cause, but it's a likely cause that we wanted to list. And then fourth, the lack of remote and exterior alarms and cameras at the moorage location may have also delayed emergency response. On page 15 of your packet is quite a long list of recommendations from the team, organized into sort of high priority, should happen before the start of the Stern Wheeler's next operating season, and then other related recommendations that could enhance the safety profile of that area in general. So we're asking for the commission to discuss those recommendations, especially those that are described as being port responsibilities, and talk about your prioritization and approval of us pursuing, presenting you with a budget for those actions that you select to move forward. And I can go through those if you'd like, or if you'd like to talk amongst yourselves. So.
Alright.
I believe the packet for the RCA is still missing that extra witness for Officer Daniel.
Oh, do you know?
Yeah.
I think I added one, I thought I did.
I saw, yeah.
Might be the wrong.
But yeah, just a note to update the packet to.
Oh, so we have Jared Daniel.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's there.
Yeah, he's not there. Basically.
He filed his witness reports specifically
it
as a
is.
citizen witness, so we listed him as a citizen witness because he was off duty. So, do you want me to go through the list or?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
go through it one by one.
Okay, so first and foremost, and Jetty Light is already working on this, is to establish and monitor a life cycle management program for all the mortgage lines, especially for that 3-inch headline. We don't know how old that line was. All of the 1.5-inch lines are generally replaced every year. And Jetty Light is going to be implementing a new life cycle management system for all of those lines. That will be at no cost to the board, and it's immediately implemented. I don't know if Kaden wants to comment on that, but they're already doing that. We are recommending to Jetty Light that they continue to evaluate the use of the galvanized steel for extra strengthening, and that they include in their employee training the technique for sufficient slack. We also recommend that the port install a remotely accessible camera on the dock and on the Thunder Island crossing. And this is, I put this in the specifically for this instant list, but also we discussed it as an overall safety enhancement generally to the marina area, safety and security. And we are still researching those costs. You know, as you know, it can run the gamut of whether or not you want a camera that can archive security footage is at the high end. And if it's remotely accessible, it's at the high end of cost, or you can go all the way down to a, very inexpensive webcam that's just providing a live view. So we'd really like to have some discussion amongst you guys of how fancy you want to get with those cameras on the marina area. We are recommending that the port install a new remotely accessible weather station at the Mortgage Dock area. And we'll be researching costs for that. And a new remotely accessible weather station on the vessel that includes GPS and pitch data. Jetty Light has already installed a new weather station in the vessel, but it does not include that GPS and pitch and drift data that we're recommending that they be installed.
Is that one of the board recommendations?
It's a Jetty Light, but Rob has been helping with just sending links to suppliers for that.
You can purchase NOAA radios,
Mhm.
specific NOAA radios.
Sure.
Pretty inexpensive compared to a weather station.
Yeah. And then we also are recommending that we do some work to determine the feasibility of installing an unmooring alarm on the boat that could be sort of like an electrified line that when it breaks, it sets off alarm so that we know that we know immediately if there's a problem. Not in this incident, we knew after a citizen report of the boat already in the lock. And installing a really loud exterior alarm on the boat for those same types of incidents. Again, to to speed up emergency response, should this ever happen again, which hopefully it will not. And then highest priority, probably when you think of a systemic improvement, is to update the port's emergency action plan to include marine incidents. it doesn't currently have a chapter specifically on emergency action plan for the marina generally or the boat itself. So if there were a fire on the boat, you know, Jetty Light has their emergency action plans that needs to be aligned with ours, and we need to have a real up-to-date call down list for these sorts of incidents in the plan. So we're recommending that the port do that before the start of the season. So those are all the recommendations from the team specifically for the unscheduled unmooring. But we also wanted to not just float the idea, but recommend to the commission the installation of life rings within weatherproof containers at multiple locations along the lock and the footbridge. And we've researched some costs for that already and have made a place marker in our proposed budget for next year for that, but it's inexpensive enough. We could probably do that this year sooner than later. You know, there's concern of theft and vandalism, and so it's really the commission would have to sort of set their tolerance level of, you know, regardless of theft or vandalism, we're going to figure out a way to fund these life rings being in the lock area and accessible for emergencies like this. We also discussed installing a net underneath the Thunder Island footbridge to deter and or catch people who jump off the bridge, and evaluate the potential effectiveness and feasibility of an alternate mooring arrangement that was recommended by former Sternwheeler Captain Randy Holmstrom. And he has talked with the Jetty Light staff about that, and they're sort of assessing whether or not they think it's something that should be looked at further.
Well, that is all I have. What would an alternate mooring arrangement?
The way that they tie the ropes, when we saw Jim come and make his presentation to the commission, you had your headline, the big tree headline off the top, you had your breast lines, and then two more that were up in there, and some of those even had doubles. When Randy came to the boats, he had sort of a different way of arranging the ropes that tied actually out across the bow. And it wasn't something they did regularly, but from time to time, if it was rough enough, they were tied up around the bow. Jim was like, oh, that's not a bad idea. And so they kind of walked through it. But I don't know if they implemented it as something of like, yes, this is something that we do, but it was certainly new information for them in a way they hadn't really considered tying the boat before. I don't know that it's a specific known way as much as it's something that we've previously done. And generally the thoughts were like, that adds another little layer of protection. So I think it's something they'll adopt, but probably not for every time they put the boat there.
And are we still considering keeping the boat here all winter, throughout the future seasons?
So currently we don't have another solution for that. We kept it, so the years that we were operating our own destroying was on the year that AWI gave destroying back to us, we had it here that winter. Then this is its second winter. It's always snapped lines before. The previous commission and the previous destroying committee really ran that question around in circles for a long time. With people who've been involved with the boat for a long time. The general consensus was it's not great for it to stay here in the winter, but it's doable. With that being said, this was a pretty big mark that like there are some days that it's not doable. Ideally, I would like to see the Sternwheeler get down into Vancouver or Portland during the winter months to do Christmas parties. I think that they would want to do that because that was where a tremendous amount of money is made. Last year it was a bit much for them to get set up here and go, all right, let's take it to Portland and set up.
Right.
I think it's a goal for them this year, but I think it's still a goal. I don't think that they're like, we're going to be set up in Vancouver come December 1st doing Christmas parties. They're really, really focused on this season. But I think, yes, long term, it needs to go down there. It makes a ton of money down there. It's safer down there.
And when they make money, we will make money.
That's
too,
right.
so
That's
we're going to do that as much as I love like the whiskey wheeler nights
Yeah.
during the winter and
Same.
stuff. It's, you know.
Right. And so I think yes, I think we want to get it back down in Portland or Vancouver. Vancouver would be really cool. The waterfront down there is so exciting right now.
All under construction, but it's gonna be.
It's gonna be, yes. So I think the long term is yes, but I don't want to guarantee that they're gonna be there by December. As much as they would like to and we would like to, it's a big lift.
I'd like to address the nets before we install nets. Perhaps we could put a sign. This is no jumping.
We
I think there is a sign.
There are, I don't recall seeing them, so I think.
They're not enormous. It's not like a giant glowing sign, but there's signs, but they're not huge. They're not huge.
Yeah, I've seen signs on bridges in Portland, you know, given a call line, like, you know, for the media that helps suicide or anything like that. Please don't jump or whatever, those types of things. So, but this is for a different purpose.
Well, go under there, we need Coast Guard clearance or something to put a net under there, depending on like how low it hung.
Good question, folks, who go under there.
Yeah, we haven't really looked, in this analysis, we didn't really look at the feasibility of the nets, but it's something we can look at.
It feels like with this analysis, this is more around the boat and keeping the
Yeah.
boat safe. The net is more around the bridge and keeping people safe.
Right.
So slightly different, and for sure, we have signs up right now, but like signs are just signs. Like the net would actually stop someone if they tried it right there, so there's a little.
It is
bit
different.
I think they kind of know they're not supposed to jump off the bridge, so.
But now we're like.
I mean, I've been,
I mean, sure,
not for the life of me, I remember seeing the sign.
What I'm getting at is that I definitely feel that we need to have them. I don't necessarily know if it needs to be addressed specifically for the boat, because right now we're talking about the boat and exactly what happened. And even if we had nets there, I don't necessarily know with that.
It seems many of these solutions are all gonna be kind of longevity, like to some degree, because it's, you know, their operation and that sort of thing, and they're all great suggestions, and, but kind of up to Jay to implement. So Kate, you want to,
Katie didn't mention that he was gonna speak tonight, he's more than welcome to, I didn't have him on the agenda, but if there's anything you want to add, Katie, or be a part of this discussion, especially glad to hear it.
Nope, I second, what Jeremiah has said. We should be hooking up, hopefully tomorrow, the cameras will be up. We have already installed the weather station as well. We will also be installing a nicer weather station for the boat, as well. The current weather station is a little bit too low price for the boat, so we attach it to the top of the building here, and then have a little display on the boat, and it has an app so we can access the data from that weather station from our phones anywhere. So yeah, if there's any questions, I would love to answer as well.
I do like the idea of that, the unmooring alarm, it's like, we would have like a signal, like a lot of treadmills basically have the same thing, where you're just like running on it, you fall.
Right.
It falls off, and
Right.
like,
It's
the
not
treadmill
like
stops.
yeah.
So it would be like a signal like that, I think that would be helpful, because I mean, even if we have a weather station, that would allow us to know what the current weather is when something happens.
Right.
But it wouldn't necessarily, like, one of the issues that we had with the boat was that we had to wait for an eyewitness to be like, hey, it's floating down the river.
Right.
But if we knew we were able to see it earlier, then I think that, I mean, we did it probably as fast as we possibly could have, but being able to know that it's happening earlier, we would be able to at least like witness it.
So it would be the first line that would snap, you know, so that we would know we were in a threat situation where lines could be snapping.
Would
Right,
it be like a each line?
No, I think he would do it, on like the wrestlings tend to get the most attention of the ones that snap the most often. That's when we saw snap last year, that's when we saw snap sort of just in some generally ugly weather. That headline snapping is like crazy, that thing is a monster. So I don't think we put it on the headline, because by the time the headline snaps, like all you're doing is showing up, be like, there you go. So maybe you put it on the wrestling, just so you know, right? It doesn't mean I have to run down to right now. Right, but it lets you know, okay, line snaps, right, so, right, lines are snapping, and it's just, because you now are aware of the environment that the boat is. If it's a headline, that's just,
might be too late.
it's too late, so, you know.
Is there any action that we need to take on this, more information?
If there's
Anything
any-
else?
if there's
Like, most of the stuff
that you
we kind of on
don't
video,
just,
that, so.
Yeah, if there's anything on the list of recommendations that you did not want to pursue, then you should speak now, otherwise we'll present you with a budget for those things.
I think that's better than less.
Yeah, I'd say one thing.
We have all, of them. Let's go home.
One thing about the security cameras, obviously on the boat, if you put it in a certain location, you could also put a camera in the other direction pointed at the marina. To track activity in the marina, because I don't believe we have security there as well. So if someone drowns in the marina, like happened in Hood River a couple months ago, we would be able to document that, so.
Generally, I'd like to see this commission come budget time, I'm gonna get it in the budget, I'm gonna highly defend it. Us getting some cameras throughout the park, who's coming in and out of our park, who's down there at the beach. The one that's pointed at the stern wheeler, probably some ones that head over toward the island area, just places where we've experienced either emergencies or, dangerous situations, people, doing graffiti, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We just don't have that in the park right now. That's not gonna be able to be a small system. That's gonna have to be a robust, expensive system that ties to our system that we currently have now. They can be monitored from the port offices, they can be monitored remotely if necessary, and then also hits,
And also archives.
and also archives for the last 30 days to hit.
Yeah.
Hit those. So for us, there is no good, just like small little run down the store and grab a camera and throw it up if it doesn't fit. So, but it's something that we drastically need to do. It would have paid for itself already just through some of the that we've experienced.
I definitely agree with 8, updating the port emergency plan, for sure. I guess one thing that I didn't ask during our other meetings, but would go with here, obviously a lot of these came from ideas from us and from J Light and from the people that were involved. Are there any, I guess, best practices from, say, like the Coast Guard or anything like that, that maybe we should take into consideration as far as the time is concerned?
And I'm sure that having Coast Guard review of any marine action plan would be something that would be.
I guess beyond the action plan, just like,
Oh,
we're talking about weather stations, we're talking about
Oh,
ropes, we're talking about all these other things to make sure that.
We have a good contact, we have a good contact with the Coast Guard. I can certainly submit this over to them and just say, hey, we review this, and if you guys have any feedback for it or anything you'd like to add to it, you are correct. They have to have an emergency plan filed with the Coast Guard, but it doesn't necessarily match ours, so.
yeah,
But yeah, let's get in front of, let's sit in front of the coasties and.
Because they might have something else, they might be like, oh yeah, this and this is great, but X is better.
It's entirely possible.
and we still have that unanswered question that wasn't really part of the analysis, but it kind of came up out of the analysis of what if it hadn't gone into the lock, what would have happened? That was still our Coast Guard question of, would it just had to have gone up against the dam, or, how would we have ever reached, we still don't have an answer to that, question.
Well, and
We gotta
we're
see.
getting American Cruise Lines in and new docks and stuff that might reposition it to where the lock isn't there to protect it anymore, so if that happens again.
Let's into another boat.
Right. So,
I've talked to a few members of the Coast Guard, just some boat guys, Captain Tom a little bit, but if it didn't land where it lands, like, we had to wait for that ship to wreck and then recover it. There's just no way you're gonna safely have people board a boat in those kind of conditions in the middle of the Columbia River in a blizzard, like they're just.
The crew like.
Let us know where it is, well, yeah. Yeah, there wasn't any rodeo on that.
And I know it's not happened before, but what happened in the storm also has never happened before, but what if it wasn't even a storm and just randomly was floating in the middle of the river? Then what do we do?
It's a big boat, there's not a lot of getting it back.
Yeah, exactly, and say it's just a random beautiful sunny day, and it just somehow comes in, it's floating in the middle, what do we do? So there's probably an emergency plan.
Yeah, that'll be the call down list.
yeah, what if somebody has like something
Oh,
under
sure.
their leg and decides to come work?
That happened to a stern wheeler on the Willamette River. Somebody went down there and just untied the thing. And it floated down in the river and it hit a bridge and they got on top of it. Same story.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So yes,
Houseboat down.
that is, that's as concerning to me as is just somebody with an axe to grind or kids or something.
How does
It's security.
it work if somebody does that? Does it actually work if somebody's just like randomly ignoring it themselves?
I think this is where security cameras come into play,
Well, for
and
sure.
they have, our security cameras at the bridge have a feature that shows any movement. And I could have it set up on my phone to alert me to any movement,
At night or whatever.
so you could set that up that way.
And with that trigger of like, if this cuts loose at whatever line, someone gets called, someone gets a message, whatever.
I would hate to think that is a possibility, but it's obviously happened in Portland and, you know, you just never know, so.
Well,
Did you see anything on the list that you're like, hey, that's a nice to do, but we probably don't need to do that? We wanted you guys to look and sort of review these and talk about each one, but is there any of them that we don't want on the list, or is there anyone that we want to prioritize higher than the others, or we just like, it's a nice comprehensive list, let's go get it?
I like it.
I like it.
We'll just do consensus on that, and we'll go back and start putting numbers around it together, see what fits with the current budget that we have, if there's some ways we can pull money to get some stuff happening now, and the things that won't, we'll work into the next budget, which will hit right on the time that their season is really kicking off, so as much as we can do before season, and then everything else after season. There are some things in here that came up, generally, Albert talked about it, said, hey, these aren't really about the boat, but the net's under the bridge. All conversations we expect to have here, especially once the bridge gets put back, I think that would be a good time for us to talk about the bridge and safety around the bridge. But I
Well,
think,
you can see nets not being, or at equal level, just on either edge, instead of being under it, right? So it wouldn't be.
Or even angled up.
Yeah.
So it's not that much fun to jump in.
Right.
I think that when we get to that point, we will come back to you with the options that exist in the marketplace. There's probably nets, there's probably taller guard railings, there's probably ages signage, we don't do nets, there's gonna be conversations about if we have nets under there, that people are gonna be throwing garbage in, if it has to be cleaned out, who cleans it out, so however we do this, is probably gonna be something that you all have to weigh in on, it's probably
People
gonna be 3 or
have
4
fish
options.
because netting would prevent fishing and stuff.
Not really.
Not really.
Hopefully, we don't have to spike that netting and it's kind of like bungee jumping.
Yeah, right.
Look at jump into the net.
Yeah, you know.
We talked about spicy, but on, and we guys talked about how much the investment is to make it safer, when all you can do is walk around the edge and jump in off the edge of the canal. So it's a longer conversation with more options for you guys to look through, but this definitely got spurred during this conversation. There's a lot of.
And we got to, at the end of all of that thought train, we got to, well, life rings at a minimum, you know, from the end of the lock on the western end all the way up, you know.
Yeah.
Or on the-
I'll say that I
All the way to
really,
the end of the site.
Yeah,
I really like this list, but I'm with Albert with the caveat that let's start way in.
yeah.
That's great. That's a great idea.
much taller rims.
That's the.
All right, next.
Continuing on, sorry.
We're okay.
Are there, I didn't see it in the agenda, any updates on the bridge itself?
No updates on the bridge itself. I've got some in my, executive director's report. Parker, you can bring us up to speed real quick, if you want to go on where the bridge is at.
Sure. Bridge is moving along. We've got contracts in review with Tommy. And once the contracts get finalized, we're hoping that on the week of the 13th, so next week will be the latest week that the scaffolding will go in. David McCurry will perform some inspections at that point. By the end of the week, those inspections will be done. We have tentatively Omega Morgan on the schedule for the following week of the 18th for the bridge move and resetting on the bearings. And at that time, Bulldog Welding will be working one day in between to install and anchor the new bearings. Once the bridge is back onto its new bearings, Omega Morgan will demobilize, and then the following week, we will have the concrete repair specialist come in. And that puts us butting up right to the end of March for inspections and removal of all equipment that was in the area. And so I think we are looking on track for the end of March to mid-April still.
Nice. Way to go, Bart.
Yeah.
Way to go, David McCurry and everybody else involved. That's it. This is not gonna, I've had a ton of help. So
That's great.
we're moving right along.
Thank you.
See, increase rates, for kids now.
So this is the introduction to, I'd like to have this be more of a discussion. We did not come up with any
Okay,
commission.
I'm gonna give one quick introduction. So Parker is the operations manager, oversees the campground. We have a campground host that lives on site year round. She checks our campers in, she checks our campers out. She makes recommendations to Parker, generally keeps us abreast on things that are happening, does some small minimal sorts of maintenance. But the day-to-day, eyes on the campground, how is business doing? What is the feedback that we're getting? All that stuff eventually lands at Parker's feet. So this is sort of his first tackle at the campground, and it's been due for a while, but this is it. So
Yeah, so this is the discussion about increasing rates for the campground, and we can end this with just a discussion over the amounts we would like to see increased, and I have some good referral numbers for the campgrounds near us. So annually, the Port examines its fees to stay current with rising costs of labor and materials. And our beautiful campground is well overdue for a rate increase. The KOA, Campgrounds of America, in Cascade Blocks charges anywhere from, the numbers I have on here are slightly incorrect, anywhere from $44 to $80 a night. The two biggest state park campgrounds in the area, Viento and Ainsworth, charge anywhere from $42 to $60 per night, depending on size and services of the vehicles. The upper end of that being hookups and the lower end being non-hookups. Along with our amenities and our extremely close proximity to the downtown corridor, we offer convenient access to water sports, fishing, picnicking, and special events. Currently, we charge a $10 service fee for online reservations, a flat use site fee, 2 to 4, $41 peak and $41 off peak. Sites 2 to 4 stay energized with water all year round. Any of the sites beyond that are water is shut off, but they continue to have electricity. So that brings us down to sites 5 to 12 is $41 peak, $26 off peak. And for our tent sites, 13 through 16, we charge $31 peak and $21 off peak. We charge a flat fee for CGRA campers, and this is per tent. We do not go over the amount of campers they have in that tent. So this is just per tent. We charge a flat fee for PCT hikers of $5 to camp, and then we charge an additional $5 for showers.
for CGRA, PCT, that's not in the actual campground though, that's over in the grass next door. Correct. Yeah.
And so I've gone through the 2022-23 revenue and did a little math and came up with a number of about 1,530 nights stayed in our RV and trailer sites 1 through 12. Sites 13 through 16, we had 350 nights stay. And that is for tent camping. That brings our total revenue. Let's add in our CGRA camping, hiker bikers, and showers as well. So that is how we from our revenue at the end of the year is all those included, though the campground is isolated from the areas. We put the CGRA and hiker biker camping. So our CGRA, we had 77 tent nights stayed at $15, and so that put us at $1,155. The hiker bikers stays were at 502 stays. And that is $5 a night for each stay, $2,510. And this is where we will kind of start talking about increases that we'd like to see. So each hiker biker is supposed to pay an additional $5 for their shower. We only had 87 showers paid for in the 2022-23 revenue year.
Oh, showers.
I think they all shower.
That is not enough showers.
I think they all shower. And this is where we'll get into some of our proposals. So staff is proposing to standardize our site use rates along with applying the one fixed fee for all lodging to be more closely aligned with the other local campgrounds. Staff also recommends updating the PCT hiker and CGRA rates to reflect the current demand and usage of the campground facilities. And we're proposing, this is just some median numbers here. So the KOA and Cascade Locks charges up to $80 for a peak season night stay. That is for a paved full hookup site. We offer no paved full hookup sites. And the next drop down for the KOA campground sites was at $67 per night, and that's for an unpaved full hookup site. So we're proposing to jump sites 1 through 12 to $75 a night, and then a flat use site fee for sites 13 through 16 to $45 a night. That would be our tent camping with 45. The KOA here in Cascade Locks charges $44 a night for one tent camping spot. And there is no hookups, no electricity. We offer water and electricity at those sites. We propose to raise the CGRA camping fee from $15 to $25 a night. And our explanation or justification of this is they almost always camp 5 to 10 people per tent. And so they're packing as many people as they can in the tents. If you look at the impact they have on the park and the amount of time that they're in the park, $1,155 doesn't justify the amount of damage they do to grass and space they take out in the areas. And then we would like to increase the PCT hyperbiker fee to $10 a night, and this to include showers. Eliminate our shower fee. So the PCT hyperbiker will now become a PCT hyperbiker as well as a shower. So,
It's been 2020 since we raised our rates for last time, we moved over into online registration. We didn't raise it very much. I think we threw in a couple dollars as the convenience fee to cover what we were paying for the software, but they relatively remained the same even in 2020. So this is the first increase we've had in a while. The market analysis is really good. That's something we certainly need to be aware of, is what other people are charging in town. We want to be good. We want to be good partners and good neighbors and drive economics in this town, and undercutting other businesses is not the way to do that.
I feel like there's a difference between a government entity run campground versus a private campground like KOA though, and we really shouldn't be comparing ourselves to them. As an avid camper myself, I'm a huge proponent of affordable camping and keeping it affordable for people. So having such a big increase worries me.
Yeah, one thing about the
Somebody
hikers,
if somebody has a alternative proposal, certainly, this is a suggestion, and we can certainly make a alternate motion.
I think something that Harper was looking at tonight is just a general discussion to hear that from the avid camper, right? That seems expensive to me. Or from somebody who has just RVs, is like, sweet, that's perfect. And if you guys kind of somehow tonight landed a figure that you like, we can absolutely do a motion. If not, we can come back and review all your guys' comments, bring it back next week and say, based on your guys' conversation, this is kind of what we heard. Then a motion, but either way, but we knew we had avid campers, so we wanted to go and stop.
I think I'm fine with the CGRA and the hyperbiker increase, because it's still really pretty darn reasonable. But I think both the RV trailer and the tent sites might be able to be, adjusted down a bit, perhaps.
Well, one thing you want to consider when you're comparing the port run campground to other publicly funded campground is, what is that funding? And for us, it's toll revenue. So there's an argument that has to be made as to what degree does the commission want to subsidize camping with toll revenue versus lottery funds or, other funding mechanisms for public camping.
Yeah.
I had a couple questions. Do we have, this just shows my ignorance, I need to go down there. Maybe I need to go camp there. Do we have, the ability to burn wood, have campfires?
we do not.
So that is one thing that KOA does have.
Correct.
Do we offer ice sodas or any kind of restaurant that KOA now has? Those are things that they offer that we don't, but they have downtown. But it's
They also
something
have
that we
sites that
don't.
have trees and more privacy. Bigger sites, our sites are very small and there's really no privacy there either. So just don't know that we're comparing apples to apples when comparing to KOA.
I agree.
I would agree that because it's a hard comparison.
And then we need to think about the showers that are gonna go in at the parking location there at the PCT. Those are gonna be free?
No,
No.
those are coin operated.
Okay. But they're still gonna be pretty darn cheap to get just a wash.
Yeah.
So maybe the PCT $10, what is it, $5 increase that includes a shower is not so bad. I don't know, what do you think about that? I think
Great.
instead of separating them, just including it and say, here, you get to camp and you also get to have a shower.
It's a convenience thing being able to camp and shower in the same location. We don't.
It sounds like a lot of, like I said, a lot of.
It's not really what I.
Shower, even though they.
Seriously.
Well, I mean, the campground we stay at, the state, it's a US Forest Service one on the coast, our favorite campground out there doesn't have showers. So, but it's like $35 a night, period, whether you have an electric hookup or not. It's a flat rate across the board.
And that's closely in line to what we charge now for our sites with electrical and water. Okay.
They have water bill, potable water, they just don't have showers or anything. I don't know, I'd like to like do a little more research and market analysis. Cause I don't feel comfortable jacking up the rates as much as we're proposing right now, just knowing, you know. What we offer compared to other sites, but also just keeping it affordable for people. Camping should be fun, it should be, you know, I know we're trying to drive revenue and stuff like that as well. Maybe the answer to that is creating more campsites so that we can bring in more revenue. Instead of jacking up our rates to make it so out of reach for a lot of people.
And that brings up a good question for me. Do we have any time in peak season that we go without it being full?
Very little. We make, so. Our revenue, I don't think I put this on here, but so our revenue for the 2022-23 season, $6,000 of the total, $77,000 came from off-peak stays. To give you an idea of how much revenue we pull from off-peak stays. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah.
Most of our campers are also a little bit different than your average. I mean, they're a tremendous number are there to fish and spend time in the park. Specifically, that's one thing that they don't have, right? You have a little bit more privacy, but you don't have an island, the Columbia River, a park you can walk around, access up to downtown. So it is a very different.
But as a KOA, you do have a train.
Oh, that's.
Not a lot of people who stay a second night because the train blows like 14 times a night. That's.
But no, we're not,
We all hear it.
we're not scraping the barrel during summer season to find people to camp there. Like we start booking up well in advance of.
But would we increase our rates? Like, would we have availability? Like right now, if we keep our rates fairly consistent, we'll turn them and burn them and like keep it full. But if the rates are higher, I know I wouldn't pay $75 a night to camp there, period. Like.
What was the proposed camping tent site rate for PCT days right now for PCT hikers? If we were,
Five going to 10.
they would pay $10 per night, and that would include.
And that includes a shower.
That's fair. I'm the only thing I'm concerned is anything going over $20 for a hiker at this event, it would be a big deterrent, and I think it would drive away the event organizers in the future. So we just got, my biggest concern is keeping it affordable for the real PCT hikers. Because that's our biggest event of the year.
But from a revenue standpoint, it's probably not the biggest money driver. I mean, having it at $10 is not that wild or absurd.
It's a $5.
I think like, whenever I originally saw this, basically I was like, oh, this is doubling, like, whoa, that's kind of a lot. But the more and more I think about it, the more the two questions come to mind. One, right now, we're probably not breaking even for the campsite, I would imagine, with the campground. And two, like,
I'd like to see the numbers on that.
and two,
Discuss around the campus.
and two, the question was, my second question was what Carrie was touching on was, do we anticipate there being a drop in any nightly stays by increasing it this much? Because if we don't, then from a business standpoint, why wouldn't we like just raise it? if we have 99% occupancy. And we anticipate still having 99% occupancy, even with a higher rate, then we're gonna have to break even from this campground at some point.
So campgrounds across ports are one of the driving forms of revenue that they have. Almost every port has a campground.
Can you see their numbers?
Depends who you want to look at, but 1.8 at the port of Pace, Aussie. They just built their new campground, they are projecting for 1.8 million.
I'm not talking revenue, but they're like, what do they charge and what are they getting for their sites and what amenities do they offer? Because comparing ports to ports might be a little bit more of a fair comparison too.
Sure. Come back to you guys with those answers.
And if we were to maybe drive up to this cost, I don't feel comfortable jumping from 45 to 75 in one jump. Maybe we come up with a plan where we incrementally increase this over
60,
time. That's a good idea.
60 for the RV sites and 40 for the tent sites. Rather than 45, so we're going up from 31 to 40 for the tent sites. And we're going up from 41 to 60.
I don't know that I'd pay $40 for a tent site either.
I think the question is asking, do we want to compete with the KOA campground as well? Or do we want to help drive business to the KOA campground?
That $75.
And is this for a for-profit business we're doing, or is this a community service?
It goes back to Genevieve's point that she was making, that you look at some of these state parks and they're funded in another way. They get lottery funds, they get all of these ways that they can use to keep their costs low. They don't drive that as this is how we keep the park up.
Right.
We do. If I wanted to open the very cheapest arcade and brewery in town and undercut the guy next door, I could absolutely do it because I don't have to make a profit. I have the dollars from the brewery that can offset some of those things.
Right.
Yeah, again, I think it goes back to, I would like to see a cost analysis of what it's actually costing us versus what the revenue we're bringing in, on that, so that we can make a little bit more of an educated.
One thing to consider is we currently subsidize our park to the tune of about $650,000 a year from our bridge revenue. So we do need to see the campground as part of our park, and so generating sufficient revenue to offset the expense. And that is certainly a consideration.
And that is where it becomes very difficult with this park in general, right? Is what do I think, why are my people here camping? What do I consider the campgrounds? It's just this little place that you're actually visiting. Would you camp here if I didn't have fishing, if I didn't keep it mowed down and keep the grass green, which I have to do anyway, whether there's a campground or not. We're going to be looking at in the future, being able to take each segment of our business and being able to split our time and resources over them to get a better clue at how each individual business's entity is running. But right now that's tough to gauge sometimes. It's tough to gauge.
I mean, I have an educated guess about how many hours a week somebody spends on a campground business.
Mid-season, how much time are we spending in the campground mowing, watering, cleaning, emptying garbages? And yeah, yes.
Off the top of my head, at least 10 hours. If not potentially more. It depends if we want to include Laurel's time.
Well, and then have to
Operate.
as an operating expense because we do pay her monthly.
Yeah.
Sure,
So operations
that's really good.
versus.
That's good feedback, and we'll bring that to the next meeting. So that's my fault for not showing up with a budget today, because that, if I had it in front of me, I could tell you right now exactly what we projected our costs at and where we're at this year for having what we spent so far on it. The campground though is definitely requires the very least amount from us as of all the businesses, of the marina, of the bridge, obviously, of commercial properties. Like, it's the most set it and forget it and checks just come and we love it. It's definitely gonna have the least amount of overhead of any of the other businesses without a doubt.
Remind me again what the $75 campground fee includes.
$75 campground fee includes your night stay, your water, your electrical hookup, and port there. And we haven't internally discussed if we would include the dump site fee in that, or if that.
So, like,
Well, that's use of the facilities.
And it does you do have sewer hookup for, those, you don't.
We do not have sewer hookups anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yes, but it's not the public. That's the Laurel sewer hookup.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of seems like a steep hike. I understand there are RVs and stuff, but there's also, given our underpass, there's a limited amount of RVs that can actually access the site, and $75 seems kind of hefty for that type of thing.
They
Yeah.
get underneath the road pass.
Oh, no, I know.
Oh, then,
The average RV is 20 to 45 feet long. We have multiple sites that are open 45 feet.
Okay.
That can accommodate RVs like that, and we also have the space for their vehicles to park.
just to muddy the waters even more, because this is the kind of conversations we were having at staff level, what about 4th of July? What's it worth to camp in my campground and have fireworks going on? What about PCT days? How cool is it to have front row camping to that huge event?
Well, like Uber and Lyft have like event hikes when they're like peak times. I think we would be able to definitely, I would concede to at least doing some rate hikes for the special events, but.
Being in the park is pretty nice, just to be in, Thunder Island, can't wait to have a Thunder Island.
What about,
With a hiking trail around it, and, like I said,
Except for PCT.
right on the water,
We need to keep it cheap for the hikers.
what about for weddings? What if a wedding wants to have the entire campground? Do they get a break for waiting on the entire campground for their weddings? Like we can dive into this. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
we did it 3 times before. But we can dive in, so we're gonna do this with each business segment, we're gonna do this with marina, we're gonna talk about dredging, we're gonna talk about the length of boats we can get in there, what our pricing is. We have to go for each business segment, and it's sort of up to you guys to decide how much you wanna dig into it. If we really wanna dig into the campground next week, like we can spend the whole time on the campground, you guys can get to know it forward and backwards, and come up with pricing for absolutely everything.
Or is there a way to separate out the utilities that belong to the campground, like percent of the utilities we can assume?
Yes.
Okay,
Each, yes, there's a meter on each part of the campground. So it's just really your guys' tolerance for how much you wanna jump into the campground.
I
Right?
wanna know before I go through increasing rates.
Right.
I think that's what I needed to know
Yeah.
first, so this tonight was to get the feel for what you guys all would like to see.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful if we can get like a printed out report of your projections of
Yeah.
like what our earnings are last year and what the projection is with the rate increase.
Yeah,
And then we
So
can-
that we have, right?
We have one.
That's the 77 and the 140.
So with this, so I have total nights stayed, an average of total nights stayed for 2022, 23, and then we can calculate anything off of these numbers and get a good idea. $75.
We don't have response.
I like Kirby's idea of operations versus revenue. That's
Yeah, I mean, we'll bring you in your way.
Any presentation for anything, I need a cost analysis for, so.
I mean, there's a general, like, the general economics, right, of like, where's the law of diminishing returns, like, how high can we actually get it before people stop coming in, it's not economically viable. I mean, to Carrie's point, like, we want, like, it sounds like that's what she wants, I think that one thing that is important for us to kind of like think about is that we are in charge of ultimately a business, and so we have to definitely separate how much we would be willing to pay ourselves versus how much we could be able to charge for something. And I think
Yes,
that
but ethically, I have to,
so I think with looking at the economics of what can we charge and still have people come and actually make the money versus if we go any higher than that and we start losing people, then we don't want to do something like that.
I mean, I know we're in the business of driving economic development, but I don't wanna do it off the backs of recreation and things that we enjoy ourselves, like morally, I feel like it's wrong, so.
Well, it's not like we're gonna charge people $2,000.
Correct.
Yeah, but what we're doing here, this is just comparable,
It's a lot.
this is comparable to what everyone else has in the.
and it's actually, you would think, I would feel worse about, doing it on the backs of things that people absolutely have to have. Recreation is an elective event.
Right.
They, and it always comes down to, if you wanna go to the coast and spend $300 for a hotel, or you want to stay at Motel 6. There's always those choices. And it's basically in the eye of the consumer. I'm kind of where you're at. If it affects us negatively to the extent that we have less stays, and it means we make less money because now we don't have people coming. But from what I've seen, as far as the way they've jacked up the cost of hotel rooms, and people just pay it.
Right.
Now you're looking at, $160, $200 for a hotel stay is just average, and now I think the Best Western, sometimes it's like $250.
Right.
In the peak season, so, you know, things keep going up and people just pay it.
And it's not that these prices are absurd, I mean, we're comparable to what the KOA is.
So
I don't think it's obviously in line with what the KOA offers now.
So it's not, and maybe your arguments of like ethically, like we don't want to hurt too much, but I don't think that this is absurd or like unethical. We're comparable to other people in the area.
And Carrie, to answer your question, I think it is a hard comparison to say, this is just, I brought the cost from KOA and brought that into this equation here, and it is very hard to compare our amenities versus the amenities of the KOA. Two very different campgrounds.
It's
If we
actually
want-
sunny, it's actually sunny at our campground, and even when the sun shines, it's like sunny, it's still
Right.
in the dark.
And also,
If we
I
were
also,
to increase this much, maybe we could get creative with other amenities that we could provide. Like, I like the idea of adding a shower for $10, but if we want to, if we're going to jump that high, it would be nice to say, look what else you get now.
Is it a tent and breakfast?
Our
You know,
campus floor
I mean,
is,
I don't even know what the answers are, but just to say, if, yes, where you did go higher, but look what else we did, and if it's just even something that looks fancy, that isn't really much of a value, that we don't have to pay.
also the
Just something-
KOA comparison is a little bit of a different experience over there. They actually have a centralized market there. You can go in and get groceries. They're adding, I believe, some bar taps and beer and stuff in there. They have a pool, they have a jacuzzi. There's also kind of a closer community feeling of it, where it's private and away from kind of the city life. And when you're in Marine Park, you know, your access to the city by foot is really, you know, taking the chance of crossing those railroads or going underneath the underpass. It's not exactly a very convenient way to access the market. So we don't really have amenities besides the electrical and the shower. So I just wanted to mention that.
So it appears that we are gonna need further discussion on this, so I suggest perhaps we bring it back at our next meeting. I think there's still time for that,
absolutely.
for us to mull it over some more and come up with some proposals. And
So just to clarify here, I want to make sure, we want to look at campgrounds that are outside of the area for some market analysis, not just the KOA. We want to look at maybe Stevenson, some of the other ports, right? We want more than just who our direct competition is. We want to take a look at the budget and see where we are this year for what we spent in the campground, and what we projected to spend in the campground, and the same for next year. That can get us close to where we have some more numbers that can help us make that decision.
Yeah, I mean, if we're losing money, obviously, we need to consider increasing the rates, but if we're at a point where we're already making profit, like, you know, I just,
Campground.
yeah,
But we're making progress.
like, I just don't, I will not vote for a $75 campsite, period. Like, my vote is gonna be no, and like incrementally, maybe, I can see going from $45 to $50 to $55 and having like annual increases, but I mean, there's so many sites around that are so much cheaper, and as a camper, like more.
I'm also in agreement with Terry on that price.
I got a question for you. This is hypothetical. If it was at 70 and we were racing to 75, would you have that reservation, or is it because it's 41 and going to 75?
I think I would not have a reservation as much, nearly as much, if we were just doing it's a $5 increase, you know? Going from $45 or $41 where we're at, all the way to 75 is like, it's just preposterous to me.
Well, it was, remember, it was strictly done based on the idea to stay competitive in our marketplace. If you want to camp in Cascade Locks and KOA is full, and you still want to camp in Cascade Locks, there's only 16 sites that are left and available. So that's why we said 75. It wasn't because we wanted to say, hey, we need to make X more dollars, or because the campground is, right? We just looked at the marketplace and said, what is KOA charging? Right, that was it. So if that isn't compelling enough, then we'll bring back other information. If that's not compelling enough, then we won't move them, or we'll move them $5, or whatever you guys sort of determine.
I think our focus needs to be on more campsites, more campgrounds built, because I think we have the ability to do that and increase our revenue stream from campgrounds with more of them at a more reasonable rate.
Where would we, well, when you're looking at the cost of living went up by, what, 20% last year or more? I would say probably more. And, wages, I don't know what the port went up, cost of, by the time you add insurance, and not just COLA, but if you look at how much, everybody's wages were increased to, and as, all of the other things related to it, you know, there again, we're talking about a pretty substantial, additional outlay.
20% increase would only be $8, so.
Yeah,
Well,
insurance,
that's what I'm saying is
yeah,
overhead has increased exponentially, as well as insurance and wages and all of those when you package all that together. So everything has gone up, and it's been quite a while since these have gone up at all. So because we don't do it every year, and that's the challenge they're having even with the when the council decides that they need to increase electrical rates, where they're talking about a 20 or 30% electrical rate increase, because council members for decades always punted it forward because nobody wants to be the one to increase rates. So you go for decades without any increases, then everybody loses their shit because, excuse me, because now the increase has to happen when it hasn't happened for decades. And now they're looking at like a 20-30% increase of electrical rates, and everybody is losing their minds.
So
But
to that,
they don't get credit for all the years that they didn't get.
I think a fair proposal is to maybe set a max of the increase for this time around, somewhere between 20 and 30% increase from the existing prices. I think going for a $75 camp spot, it just looks very bad publicly.
I feel like we're just arbitrarily saying our own personal feelings for the actual numbers. I would love to see actual economics of like, where are we, like, how much can we actually charge before we start losing campers? And like, what is that bell curve of actual like return?
So
Because right now, we're just saying, well, this is how much I would pay, and I don't think that that's probably a good spot for us to start.
And the answer to that question would be, any sites that we have booked now will stay booked at their rate. That's the rate they will pay. I can look and see what our percentage of book stays is for the upcoming year. And if we did an increase, we could, over the course of the year, analyze how much we've lost in stays.
Right.
That way, and so I think there's ways that we can go about finding these numbers.
Yeah, there's definitely like an economics, like there's actually an equation.
oh yeah, for sure.
That we can have.
So I think this is gonna help us as a group to understand how much commissions want to dive into each individual segment of our business.
Right.
There is a version of this in my head where you guys come and go, what's market rate? Perfect, let's be at market rate and we move on. But you're not, you're asking some in-depth questions like, where's the developer? What was our cost on this? How much are we actually making on it? What are we willing to make? What are the ethical opinions around moving it up a certain amount? Should we set a schedule every year to review what our fees are so that we can move them incrementally and it isn't so painful? Probably so, right? So these are a lot of things that came from this conversation. I'm like, great, we can bring all this back. This is easy. We're gonna dig into the campground. Let's do it. Right? So yeah, no big deal. Let's do it. When we come back, we'll bring back the budget. We'll bring back what we're spending in the campground. We'll go out and look at some of the other campgrounds, Gulf Ports, over in Stevenson. We'll have a little bit more information about what KOA does. And I think that we can absolutely come up with exactly what the right price is based on your guys' thinking. And then an escalation period from there or whatever, however it lands with you guys, but. Great.
Thank you for bringing that to topic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For all good questions. Good discussion.
It was.
All right, business action item. Appoint budget committee members.
The budget committee consists of 5 commissioners and 5 citizen members. The court advertises vacancies for the citizen members on the website and solicits letters of interest. We haven't had 5 budget committee members for a long time. Usually get 2 or 3 or 4, but we haven't had 5. I reached out to the commission, asked for you guys to reach out to other citizens. I got some ideas back from you guys of who to speak to. Was turned down by a few folks and a few folks that were very interested. The three people that have expressed interest is George Torres, said he was interested in learning more about the community and working with local government. Shelley Avera, who is at Ale House, who is also now sitting on the charter committee for the cities, who's starting to get involved with more things. Felt like handling the budget was a good start for her. And then Brian Kelty would like to be considered as a citizen member, as he believes that what the port strives to be a business-friendly engine for economic development, and would like to help port grow its business. I like it, goes straight to the mission statement. So I think it's good. We've got Diana Reedy Van Winkle and Donna Moore, who have been on it for a number of years. They're going to be great leadership for the new folks. We'll bring the new folks in, give them some budget training. I think they're going to ask some out-of-the-box questions that we haven't thought about in a long time, because they're fresh blood looking at it. You five commissioners will sit in on those meetings as well. So I'm excited to have 10 people in the room looking at the budget. You guys have the ability to appoint all three of them. One of them, we can continue to go out and look for other people who are interested in maybe doing it, but how do you guys,
I love
what do
the
you guys
diversity.
right? It's fun.
Yeah,
I'm really excited
Very
to
good
see.
call. so if anybody else needs any discussion, I don't make a motion.
Go for it. I have a question before we make it, like, if we do this, are we done with budget appointments?
Yes,
Uh,
until next year. Oh, sorry.
yeah, until next year.
Until next year.
We're already appointed.
Diana, I think is done.
Diana and Reedy, and then we'll just done next year. She'll probably apply it, and she likes it, she's good at it.
All right, so I make a motion to appoint George Torres, Shelley Olvera, and Brian Kilty to the budget committee and continue to advertise vacancies and solicit interest in citizens simple vacancies.
Of course.
A second.
Yes.
Second, to approve the, approve George, Shelley, and Brian. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Passes unanimously.
Fun, welcome to the board. It's gonna be good.
Executive Director report.
Quick report for you guys this evening, just an overcap of what we've been spending the last couple of weeks on. The events realm are undertaking facility sales, follow-ups, various channels. She has a number of different websites that she works through, that she gets leads on. She's streamlining the event permit process. It's always been a little bit wonky, so we're trying to streamline that. She, as well as everybody, has been working on their budget. So we've had a number of budget meetings focused on forecasting. She is going to be looking at projecting price increases for her wedding as well, weddings as well. Venue tours, both in person and via Zoom. She had 6 new bookings for in February. I don't know when they fall within the year, or even if they're in this calendar year. I don't know if they were weddings or birthdays, but she did have 6 bookings for later on. Under operations, critical tasks such as the that's the clinical name for it, right? Is that the name of that Naxalon? What do you call it?
Narcan.
Narcan, thank you.
Naloxone.
Naloxone, is that how you say it? So we did Narcan training in the last couple of weeks, fire extinguisher inspections around the port, out of our buildings. Parker's been looking at the cook shack floors and the reconstruction. That's completed, closed.
Not completed, but in works. Concrete's been removed. We're just waiting for good weather for concrete in.
Finalizing plans on the bridge move, which you already spoke to a little bit. That is moving at a record pace for the sport, and I'm really excited about it. We're gonna love not to disappoint any brides by affecting their weddings. And also, I know that Jay Light's gonna be super appreciative that we won't be hitting them up for any lost revenue charges by losing some weddings. So it's coming together quickly. We're also moving forward at a pretty good pace with the fishing platforms that we're taking out and getting those replaced. Which won't lead to a loss of cash, and Parker's been taking the lead on that as well. Administrative section highlights efforts in meeting preparation, data consolidation, addressing technical issues such as phone line resolutions. Noteworthy accomplishments include grant application submissions, coordinating with state representatives for funding support, and ongoing preparations for audits and financial policy updates. So that's a big mouthful, but the things that we're tackling on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. Genevieve has taken a lead on pulling together a lot of our grant information, making sure that we have reported all of those correctly, and that we're reporting our spending correctly as well on those. That was something that was split between Brittany and Mark Johnson. And she picked that up and run with it in fantastic way. So we appreciate her efforts there. She also continues to find us new money, which is very exciting. Finance related updates, more efforts towards financial policy customizations, efficient data management, audit preparations for the coming fiscal years. We also sat down with Matt from Marine Co. yesterday, and went over our financial policies. So we have a financial policy currently in place. It is 1 page long. The one that we're currently working on, again, was 23, 24. So we'll be bringing those to the commission for adoption here shortly. There will be lots more comprehensive and lots of stuff for you guys to go through. But it is an arduous and long process of getting through those, but it's good. In the legislative domain, Dan's been very busy, back in Washington, DC. So he's doing that with PNWA. There's some legislators back there. We've got a meeting with the EDA and USDA, setting ourselves up for grants for next year. Genevieve has some exciting ideas about some money that we might have access to. And so although we didn't have an ask this year, Dan is up there letting them know we will be back and we're excited about it. We've got some feedback on our $6 million ask. We don't know anything specifically yet, but we're leaning towards that we're probably not going to get the full $6 million. We're ending up in the Crippen Street budget, or Crippen Street bill. There's $24 million to go around in that bill. 6 is a big chunk. So Dan has asked us to start prepping ourselves that we could get a smaller number that sounds like 5 million, or sounds like $1 million, or sounds like see you next year. That is sort of the process you go through when you're lobbying for dollars like that. We certainly hope that they take a regional partner approach to this and are an example for what's happening over on the Washington side, which has been getting very excited about having a stake in the bridge and a conversation regarding the bridge. But I know that Helfrich and Bonham have been back there battling for us and have done great work, and we certainly appreciate all the efforts that they've been putting forward. And we'll know sooner rather than later, but it won't come from a lack of effort from our legislators, that's certainly for sure. That's all I've got. Although there's
They have a whole lot of other things on our.
we're busy. Stay busy. Stay busy.
All right,
You might touch on the application
Sure.
on page 4.
Submitted $19,000 grant application to experience growers in the Good River Strategic Investment Fund to help local matching finance. Oh yeah, this is good. Good job on that.
So we haven't gotten an answer back on that one yet. The total amount, so that grant fund is administered by the Experience Gorge Mount Hood, which is a regional destination marketing organization that receives a portion of the 1% of the transient room tax that goes to the state. The state then distributes it to the RDMOs, and they have their marketing programs, and some of them have implemented a grant program. They have, I think, 72,000 to give away this year, so we are asking for a large chunk of it, but it's to offset and to help pay for the cash match that we're on the hook for the restroom project.
okay.
Great.
All right, commission comments.
I would like to ask or follow up, the cook shed for reconstruction has started. That affects Ixtapa coming in, right? Is
No,
that?
Cook Chester is just the little like outdoor picnicky areas where there used to be a barbecue.
Okay, so then, yeah, just an update on Ixtapa then, at like
Yes, so
ETA or.
Got a call from Juan, I can't remember if it was last week, I think it was last week. He has got all of his permitting approved from the county. So that was where the last hangup was. We got hung up with the city for a while waiting for a traffic study. Traffic study got finished, so that now can go to the county. The county has now approved everything. That's a long way of saying that they plan to start next week. If not start, finish up next week. It'll probably be April-ish.
I thought we had some reconstruction to do
We
in.
have some electrical updates, we have some electrical work to do in
Is
there.
that
They were about halfway through some of this stuff, like if you go into there now, the floor's cut out, there's all their pipes are,
But that's not gonna hold up.
it is not. We are moving forwards. We finally crested all of the little hiccups along the way, so now it's just construction work, and there shouldn't be a lot of different.
I hope they advertise the grand opening party.
We're ready to stop.
Anxiously waiting. For my comments, I just want to thank you so much for doing the root cause analysis. I think it was very valuable. And I did read it all, and I will probably read it again. I think that type of, looking back is a great learning experience for everyone and to better, the future. And Parker coming to us with great addition, conversation, regarding revenue that, we can definitely benefit from. If we're not gonna go to the top dollar, at least we need to talk about it. So I appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys. I don't have anything else, to add. Just thanks.
First of all, thank you to the entire port staff. I know we've had a lot of challenges with, the stern wheeler, getting the boat fixed, getting the crossing fixed, along with the opening of our wedding season. So I really appreciate how flexible you guys have been and getting things done last minute to make things work and get ready for the season. So you guys are doing excellent work. So as for myself, very busy month. Thank you, Carrie Ann, for scheduling the SDAO local budget trainings next week. So I'll be attending those. There's 3 of those virtual. And then I'm looking forward to the annual strategic planning this Saturday at Gorgeous Beer Company. And then the Morgan City planning training the following weekend.
Catered by them.
Just, it's gonna be here, but catered by Gorgeous.
Okay, gotcha.
They give us sweet
And then
cheeses again.
And then today, I actually attended a life jacket station conference for the CETO Foundation. It's the same organization that provided Port of Hood Rivers stations. They're having a 3-day convention, so I'm going to be attending tomorrow and Thursday. The port is in the running to win the first prize, which is a full building kit with wood for a life jacket station. So I'm going to keep trying to get those points as I attend the conference. And then, I just hope that you guys have a wonderful beginning to your spring here. So,
Is there something we can do to help you with that?
not at the moment. I've been kind of like emailing you guys updates along the way. Today, I sent over a U.S. Coast Guard list of grants that they offer and the funding amounts, and there's quite a lot of money out there. So I'm starting to think, how would we set up a life vest station? I think initially the port could be the agency that installs the stations, and then we can probably seek out another organization in the community to help with the resupply. One thing, a potential is Gorge Canoe Club, a nonprofit, could fill in that void for annual resupply of the life jackets. So that's one idea we can discuss later amongst the commission. So
Yeah, I'm excited to see that.
also include CGRA as well, because water safety is a mutual interest between the 3 parties. So.
And they do use sailing, we just had the boat, they did what it did, we had this winter, I think this one's a slam dunk, I'm excited to see it get done. Thank you for the lead.
And I feel like we have a really good opportunity. The grant window opens November 1st, closes February 1st of 25. But I think we have a lot of environmental things that have happened with the recent drowning, the drowning in Hood River Marina, the stern wheeler getting loose and there's no life rings around. It seems about the time to actually do something about it. So.
How the life ring help the steering wheel getting loose? Just curious. No, like.
Yeah.
Someone went into the water on their way into the storm.
But yeah, that's all I have to say tonight.
Thanks for reminding me. I'll go next. I want to say thank you to Genevieve for spearheading the root cause analysis reporting. It was fun probably isn't the right word. But it was very enlightening, and I think the technique, the Ishikawa technique was super interesting, and I think that really let a lot of us kind of like dig deep into it. So thank you for leading the charge on that. Just a reminder for everyone, and also to put on the record, the museum opened on March 1st. So I hope a lot of folks either go to the museum or support the museum.
You're the first paying customers in the season. You should be there on day one.
Love it. I have a couple of questions. One, the boat repower update and timing.
Yeah.
Do we have, what does that look like?
Sure. So one of the things that, so it got delayed, right? I remember, I think I brought this back to you previously. It got delayed, the engines, they didn't meet their deadline. So it got pushed farther into March. What we're looking like now is leaving around the 18th of March. It's gonna be 2 parts. We're gonna get a repower over there. We're also gonna finish up a few just, other projects that we have on that list. But now we're also gonna be in there going actually into dry dock. Previously, we could do this while in the water. We needed to be a big marina with cranes in order to do that. Now we're actually gonna be taking the boat out of the water, but that's to do the repairs for the damage that was done for when the boat wrecked.
Right.
We don't think it will be back there any longer, that it's gonna be able to be out there about the same amount of time. It's a bit of a bummer that it's not gonna go back till the 18th, because it'll be back there 2 weeks probably, give or take. That's about the time the Sterling would like to be open if they could, so we're gonna delay their season just to air. But as of now, everything's looking like it's lined up. We're meeting every day on that. That's all gonna come out of our funds to pay for that. So far so good. I have some additional updates, I'll bring them, and it'll be email updates throughout the week. It's pretty fluid, like there's a possibility, like I got parts coming from different places, when they got ordered 4 months ago. When are they all gonna arrive? How many crew members are we sending down there? Can we get away with 3? Can they stay overnight, right? This is a fairly big project. They came in an interesting way. So we're getting through it. We're getting through it.
What's the anticipated, I guess, launch date for?
Sternwood,
Yeah.
Caden left. I want to say
here, no, I think Caden is going.
very quickly when they get back. The boat will be, they're prepping now. I don't know if you saw this, but they recently just posted on Facebook, they painted the bathrooms. Right, and doing all the work through the off season, so it really is, get it in there 2 weeks, get the engine replaced, do the work. Once it gets here in April, they run in April, right? And I know that they're gonna be filling the boat up, it's gonna be chilly out here still, but they're anxious to get underway.
Because spring break is hitting at spring break's hitting at the end of March.
That's part of what they're like,
Yeah, okay.
and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, because I was actually just looking at it the other day, there's multiple different spring breaks that are kind of like every multiple different weeks, depending on school district. Okay,
So once you go down to JT Marina and see the Sterling out of water, it's really cool.
okay. So we would be looking at probably early to mid-April.
Or where these might go.
Okay, okay. 2 other things. One is probably way too early, and one of them still needs to be addressed, but I know that I sent through the letter for the generator. There's probably a million ways we could possibly figure that out as far as the community is concerned. I'll probably just connect with you separately on like how we probably want to see that. I don't know, like the best way to move forward with that. But the other thing, this one, the one's probably way too early, but I think that last year we probably started talking about it way too late. Christmas lights.
Love it. What are we talking about this?
Are you serious?
So one of the things you guys did early last year was, that spurred us was like, okay, we want Christmas lights, we want them down the park, and we want to see what that looks like. So we've got, we're working on, Parker's trying to track them down. There's a company that's out of, I want to say Tiger or something, that does setup, takedown, and storage of large light shows. So we're gonna get them out to do an assessment of the park, see what it looks like for us to do a Christmas light display that's big enough for us to call our destination in the shoulder season. That's either drive through or walk through. We've been talking amongst ourselves about whether we light up that islands, and that's safe, we have to drive, do drive, and then go to the four-way. So us as the staff, we're sort of mapping out things that when he does come and do his assessment, we can take and say, this is the four-way, we get traffic like this. This is yeah, it's exciting, it's exciting.
Turning pavilion into an indoor Christmas market, and those trucks and stuff like that.
Now is the time to talk about it, because I called this guy in November, and he's like, oh, that sounds really cool. Next year, they never called him back. Pretty sure he got this.
So I remember we talked about it in like November or maybe in October, and we were like, oh yeah, it's way too late.
Yeah.
It was like, partner, get out there tomorrow.
There's also some local folks that have some connections to large people who do large light displays, the Lipses. Someone in their family is somebody that does, and not here locally, but so they've expressed some interest in coming out and talking to us a little bit about what can be done up there. So yes, we're tackling Christmas.
We have to keep the displays at the.
I think that. I think you're right. I think that is exactly what we have to do.
Yeah, really.
You sure?
I think you're right. I think the displays go by the bridge.
The last one, we're past March 1st. What's next up with Flex 6?
Perfect. So next up is Flex 6. Rent it. So we have ended, we've ended our contract with Enbot, right? That ended at the end of February. Right. So now it is back on the court to find someone for Flex 6. Right. I've had some interesting conversations with somebody not necessarily ready to talk about it yet. You sat in on some of that conversation. Based on what I have in the pipeline, he is very important to us. Okay. And so we're going to start to have some long sort of conversations to see about what we can do to push that. He's the only one right now that's showing any sort of interest in it whatsoever. We've talked about what investments in this building would look like, and it's not going to be recouping our money on it. Right? We're going to be catching up on this, right? It's going to be able to increase the square footage because I split it up into 4. So it's a bummer. We're chasing a loss here a little bit. So there's some discussions amongst all of us about what chasing a loss looks like. And if there's someone who can take 100% of the building or 75% of the building, we start talking about rent abatement versus larger investments from the court to split it up or to add additional things. That might be a way of looking at it. Cold storage is an option that we're talking about with that gentleman. So that is the top of the priority list.
Okay. Yeah.
And some crazy person talked about the idea of what would it look like if we could divide off the office space if this cold storage person doesn't want office space and turn that into combined port city offices and
that discussion
and WeWork space and daycare. You know, how much space is the office, and it's already, the electrical is somewhat divided already as far as having panels, you know, separate panels, etc. And it might not be a big job to put in a demising wall and then turn that west end of that building into port city offices. And because the city's looking at $2 million to fix this building enough to be able to keep it operational.
Right.
So, you know, might be, you know, what would that look like? How much money are we talking about as far as lost revenue, et cetera, or whether that part of the building just sits vacant? You know, so.
Genevieve.
Lots of creative thinking.
Yeah, lots of creative thinking. And one that direction would be a different approach, right? We should have to say, listen, we're going to take more of a legislative or a governmental approach at this and take some time to find somebody. The city's going to go after money to replace this building or to find somewhere else to go. So they might find a couple $1 million. If we can find somebody a few years earlier and say, hey, listen, you don't need to come up with $2 million. We have a building that's ready. It's sitting empty. We have buildings that are down at the port that are being used as offices that can be rented out as bed and breakfasts. Right? There's ways that we could look at it that will not be fast. What he's talking about is very cool. It'd be very cool for city board offices to share that. Could be out.
And the nice thing is, as opposed to building our own building to do that same thing, then on top of that, we've got design fees, we've got system development charges, we've got connection fees, we've got you know, sewer, water, all of that thing, which has already been done with this building. Right. So it'd be a huge cost savings over trying to do that to build another building that would suit that purpose. Right. So
my priority list is considerably getting shorter as Genevieve shows how quickly she can pick up and adapt to this board. I mean, it's the nine years of running, that her time at Florida Quid River has allowed her to acclimate very, very quickly. So every day I have less on my plate and flex one more and more becomes my priority, that I'm going to have to say, hey, listen, you got this, I gotta go get fit, figure out flex 6. And we're getting to that point. We're getting to that point where most of my day is going to need to be focused on flex 6. It just is.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious, like, it should be the priority, like, we've talked about it before, like, we got on here because of Flex 6,
Right.
like, we gotta figure something out with it, like, fast, fast. Okay, I look forward to continuing and hearing more of that, of those options and making action instead of
It's challenging.
waiting.
It's challenging to move at the speed of business
Yeah.
instead of the speed of
And
government.
we were a little bit stuck with our previous decision. Our previous decision to go out and try to work with a broker, and she did an amazing job. She worked hard at it. It's not an easy building to rent. We have 8 months of previously trying to do it ourselves, so it's not an easy task. But we were also somewhat committed to that, right? So anything that I kind of had in my hopper, I couldn't really move on because it would have belonged to her as the broker for that deal. So now it frees us up a little bit more to go out there and advertise, how can the port help? What can we do? Do we need to demise some walls? Do we need to abate some rent? Do we need to get you a workhouse or workforce housing built? Do you need, what can we do? That's probably the direction that we're gonna go and look now. We built that building for a very special company and it didn't work out. And it's a very special building in a very special place and it's very big. And that's probably what it's gonna take again. It's probably not gonna be somebody who just comes and goes, perfect. This is exactly where I want to move my business and my 70 employees. We tried that and it didn't work. It's probably gonna be going to somebody and saying, listen, there's an opportunity here. How can we make it look exciting enough for you to start to move on quick? It's unfortunate, but it's probably the direction we're headed, and I think what we'll wind up with is something pretty special again. That renewal workshop is sad as that sort of trajectory of that story is, they were pretty cool. It's a neat business, they had a really good story in the way they came up, they built themselves in this town, they employed a number of local people, like it was cool. It was cool, it's a bummer it didn't work out. So if this commission can take Flex 6 and turn it into another special story for a special company that does have an impact on this community by hiring local folks, some of that stuff.
Positive impact.
Correct. I think that's the direction we might have to go with a building of this size and this scale at this point.
And we've reached out to Wes Cochran, who's the regional representative for the EDA specifically about our situation with Flex 6 and what sort of programs. And there were a couple that he said would be right up their alley that, so there's, alternate funding that we could go after for some of these projects to suit the site to the perspective.
Cold storage being one. Yeah, that was very exciting. So, yeah, EDA, I mean, for those funds, that was something that we did, would be cold storage, so. Those are all great for us.
Cause I know multiple that would already be interested in something like that. Good. Okay. That's all I have.
Alright, well, I don't have to talk about Flex 6, that was the first time. But no, seriously, if it does turn into cold storage or something, I will go out and talk to all the breweries myself if I have to get interest and get them in. I don't care, however we can help get this filled up and get it leased out, 100%, let's do it. I will sleep better at night when it.
I will actually sleep.
Right. The other thing I wanted to bring up, Hood River Bridge is not allowing the heavy trucks on it anymore. So that's gonna affect our bridge traffic, but also maybe the wear and tear on our bridge. So just wanna make sure that that's something we're thinking about and focused on, that we might need maintenance sooner than later because of Hood River's decision. Oh, one thing I wanted to ask is just kind of an administrative thing. On last week's agenda, we had notable dates listed. Can we have that as like a constant?
Yeah, I noticed that.
Cause that's really helpful, cause there's, I think, a lot of notable dates coming up.
Yes.
And it's just kind of a good, healthy reminder of where we need to be. Earth Day is coming up in April, got a tourism committee, email asking if there's events and stuff. I think I need to talk to you and the Gorge GCC about getting a highway cleanup the weekend before. I think it lands on Monday, so we'll probably do something over the weekend. It's the 22nd. So
April or March?
April. So April 20th, 21st, like plan a highway cleanup, but also maybe the port wants to consider participating in some kind of Earth Day event or hosting something at the pavilion, like a workshop or somebody we can partner with.
We can take a look and see what we have available for our facilities. And then if there's any sort of events that are happening that you're aware of, that need help with some funding, we still have some money that's left in the community fund, so for sure.
Okay. Just something to think about, and I know it's coming up quick, so I'm not sure if there's anything we can do at this point, but. Lastly, we're sneaking up on our 100-year bridge anniversary. So I really want to start planning something for a big celebration of it. I think it would be cool if we could partner with Red Bull or somebody to do a fly under the bridge. I think that's something we need to really start looking at this year. Because it's gonna take flight clearance and all sorts of stuff to prepare for that, so it's something we need to start looking ahead. And is there any and this is totally unnecessary, but I think would be cool, and we've talked about it before, is maybe getting some grants or something together to light the bridge up. Like, you know, a lot of cities have lighting under their bridges that turn at different colors and stuff, but I think that could also draw tourism to our community, to have some cool lighting under it, and to coincide that with our 100-year anniversary, like an unveiling of the lights would be super cool. Just to see how much it costs or something like that, and start getting quotes and seeing if it's something that we might be able to get grants for. I'm not really sure, but I think it would be worth looking into, because our 100-year anniversary is in 2026, 2 years, right? It's gonna sneak up on us very quickly. And if we can maybe combine I don't know that we know the actual month of 1926 that the bridge opened. If not, we can coincide it maybe with like PCT days or something like that. So just some things. I just don't wanna drop the ball on that because it is coming up pretty, I mean, just like Christmas lights. Yeah, we have to plan far ahead. That's all I've got.
My turn.
Yeah.
So, let's see, got a text from Dan Marr this morning, just alerting me to somebody that I met last year that, you know, is from my ancestral hometown of Genesee, Idaho. And is Joe Anderson anyways, he's from Port Louis, and just, he said, hi, here's his card, you know, and but then gave me an update on kind of what he's doing and having very productive meetings there in DC, and learned a lot about some federal grant opportunities, so that's great. Also, I spoke with Jeff Elbridge this week, who is our legislative guy, what is he, District 52, state rep, and he gave us kudos for, he's been working with Dan Marr when he was down there, saying, "Long as boy, you guys made the right choice, bringing Dan on," and I concur with that. Also, Jasper Smith was in Gorge Magazine, and very nice write-up about he and Ella McCollum. Anyway, how well they're doing with their, we need to have a backstory of how they came to be doing Basque type style cider. And sounds like they're doing great things and just growing like crazy. So it's neat to have us be partnered with them. Looking forward to the strategic business plan And looking forward to hopefully us moving forward at the speed of business instead of the speed of government. And you know, but I think the strategic business plan is a big part of that. And kudos to Jeremiah and Genevieve, they're doing a great job. I mean, you know, they're thinking out of the box even more than I am. Like, we gotta almost get back into the box, you know, but no, they're doing some great stuff. So we talked about a lot of the crazy ideas I have. They said, we won't be talking about that, you know, so that's good. But yeah, looking forward to also following week, the 16th, training session for planning. Looking forward to that. Definitely got to get some more folks, make sure that the planning commission and the city council and all of us are there. And I think there's a lot to be learned about how we all work together on planning for things in our community. But yeah, looking forward to a lot of that. I had an interesting Deb was talking with Denise Baker, who she just sold her house. I don't know if you know Denise. Anyway, she just sold her house, and we talked, probably been 6 months or a year ago about the idea of tiny home community. And she said at the time, she said, oh, she'd love that, to do something like that, because she wants to travel and still wants someplace to come home to. Well, she texted Deb yesterday, sold her house and bought in Welsh's, so we're losing her. She bought for 116,000. Basically, it was about a 600 square foot. Essentially, it's like a park model, single wide, very nice, brand new manufactured home in a park there in Welsh's. So she went ahead and did what we haven't done. She found a tiny home community or a place that she could park, because, you know, now she can afford to pocket the difference between what her house sold for and the 116,000 and allow her to travel. And we found repeatedly people in our community of our age that are making the choice to downscale and to move into these types of communities so that they can afford to travel and subsidize their social security, et cetera, with the proceeds from their large homes, which they no longer need. So anyway, that's my little plug for at least looking at that as a potential option moving forward. Also, anything that we do, as we've said before, will be, and I'll give Genevieve and Jeremiah all the credit for this, because everything that we're doing is definitely fact driven. I mean, you know, anything we research it thoroughly and look at the cost benefit analysis on everything we do, and you all have a great ability to do that just from the discussions we've had on everything else. So looking forward to our strategic business plan and being able to start looking at moving some things forward.
Like Flex 6.
And Flex 6, yes, Flex 6 and other potential developments in the downtown, hoping to make some things happen in the downtown core, as well as looking at some possible options for different types of housing, all kinds of different types of ways to make housing more affordable, and what we can do with our residential properties and what we can do with any of our properties. So it's a big task, but I think we're up to it. So, well, that's all I have. Does anybody have anything further? If not, we can adjourn.
I can make, do we need motions to adjourn?
I think just say we're adjourned.
Yeah.
All these years, I thought we had to decide who adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
You know, the funny thing is with previous,